So we just have to be honest about it. Now, in the case of Trump, this is where you and I, quote, have a disagreement. I agree with everything that you say about Trump. I mean, I loved your analogy about him being a balloon that goes in different directions. Is that what was that? Can you remind us what that analogy was?
A picture of his mind, or at least the way I see his mind, is if you hold up a balloon without tying off the end and release it and just watch it fly chaotically around the room. That's how I view the quality of his mind and attention.
Right. So now let's take Trump versus Clinton as relating to Islam. Uh, there are different decision rules that we can use in making a choice. So, for example, we could take all of their attributes that define them, and then we choose that candidate who scores higher on the greater number of attributes. And then maybe if we use that decision rule, well, then Clinton wins. On the other hand, there is another rule called the lexicographic rule, which basically says look at the most important attribute for you. I mean, if you were choosing toothpaste, the most important attribute might be price. So I choose the toothpaste that has the lowest price. That would be called the lexicographic rule. Well, if Islam or immigration is the most important issue to you, and you are somebody who is willing to choose a president based on the lexicographic rule, then to the extent that you and I would probably agree that Donald Trump has a better handle on this issue than Clinton, then you would choose Trump, and it would not make you irrational. So all I'm saying is that we have to be a bit more nuanced, and I'm not attacking you here. I'm just saying in our general discourse, we have to be more nuanced than to say, she's presidential and polished, and he's a decapitated chicken without a head who just utters random nonsense. Uh, the truth lies somewhere in between. In my case, I know for a fact, and I hope I'm not being presumptuous, that irrespective of whether Trump or Hillary Clinton come in, at the end of 4 years, very little is going to change in terms of the economy and all the other things. The sky is still going to be the same color, so to speak, and the sun is still going to rise in the same way. But if we have a person who is going to go down Angela Merkel's policies
Hmm.
and has promised to bring in 500,000 new immigrants from that region, I know that downstream there will be irrevocable changes that will have an effect on our societies. And I'm not American, right? So people can listen to my position and know that I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't care. I'm not voting. But I know what happens when Islam becomes dominant, notwithstanding that most Muslims are perfectly lovely. So therefore, I look at the issue that I think matters most to my children and yours, and I say, which of these two candidates scores better on that? And then maybe I'll go with the one who scores better, and that's it. What do you think of that logic?
Yeah, well, I just don't. I wish our situation was that rosy, but I just think, given the nature of Trump's mind and given the kinds of things he has said, you just can't be a single issue voter with respect to
Right.
this election because I mean he's said sufficiently crazy and world destabilizing things that if taken seriously and they were uttered earnestly, they suddenly pose bigger problems than Islam, arguably. So for him to say that maybe we want to default on our national debt or basically renegotiate it like it's a failing casino, you're talking about destroying America's standing in the world and maybe kicking off a global recession. It's insanity. And global warming being a Chinese hoax, and the kinds of
Right.
things that come out of his mouth are enormously important and just so ill considered as to be, just I can't believe that we're in the situation of, where his proximity to power is something we're actually having to contemplate and respond to. The only thing standing between him and more responsibility than any person has arguably had in human history is the deeply flawed candidate of Hillary Clinton.
Right.
It's a terrible situation. I agree with you that it's a huge issue. It's not, I don't know that it's the most important issue given just the other things in play. We've got a nuclear armed Russia actively hacking our election. We got one candidate celebrating it. There's so many things going on that have nothing to do with Islam that are huge.
So you're thinking, if I could summarize what you're saying to put it in sort of in decision-making terms, his superior position, whatever that means, on Islam, does not sufficiently sway you in comparison to all the multitude of other ways on which he scores in an inferior way to Hillary Clinton, so that when you look at the total package, you simply have to go with Clinton. Is that a fair sort of summary of what you're saying?
Yes, because and his position on Islam is only superior superficially. It's not
Right.
based on him actually understanding what's going on in the world. He clearly doesn't. He quite famously mistook the Quds Force for the Kurds. I would bet my life he couldn't utter more than a single sentence about the difference between Sunni and Shia Islam, and could not tell us
It's a huge difference,
you know,
huge.
yeah, yeah, he could, yeah, exactly, and he couldn't tell us where, on the map you would place the Sunnis and the Shia. There's no reason to believe he understands what's going on in the Middle East or anywhere else with respect to Islam. He just knows there's a problem with Islam, and there's not a problem with Mormonism of the
Right.
same sort, and so we're right to be worried about it. So that much he understands, but there's no question that Clinton understands that too, and arguably the thing to worry about, at least if you're a liberal with her, is that if anything, she's too hawkish with respect to Islam. It's not that she doesn't understand that only one religious community on earth is reliably producing this death cult behavior. No, she understands it, and she's happy to fly predator drones all day long and kill these people, somewhat indiscriminately if you're, on the left and you're judging that practice. She's already shown a commitment to killing jihadists. That means she knows where the jihadists are coming from. She's not oblivious to the problem. Now, when you talk about somebody like Angela Merkel, who has let in what seems to be a crazy number of refugees and economic migrants without having really thought it through, I just don't see that as something that is at all likely to happen in the U.S. I mean, one, we can absorb more people, but two, we're not going to let in nearly the same numbers, I think.
Well, I've heard the numbers, and I guess we'll have to check the veracity of those numbers. But I seem to have read somewhere that she's committed to letting in up to 500,000, increasing whatever Barack Obama has done
Right.
fivefold. Uh, I don't think that's. I mean, that's not a number that's as bad as whatever's happening in Germany, if only because their number is bigger with a smaller population. I get that,